This is a 2014 Ford Mustang, and before you say anything, this one is different. Because it's mine. This car is actually nothing special, it's just another V6 Mustang rolling on the road, just like all the other car. The only thing that I think it's special is because I own this car for almost 5 years, so I know all the scratches on this car, I know all the dents and where they came from and things like that. So I think it's, after all the cars that I've driven and reviewed, I never thought I should review my own car because this car is actually quite boring. There's nothing special about it. But lately, I've joined I went to a lot of different car meets and things like that. A lot of people are quite interesting about my car and want to ask the build and the Mars about the car. Then I think, yeah, maybe it is a good time for me to actually talk about what I've done to this car and what's special about it. First of all, it's a V6 Mustang. Like all the other V6 Mustang, it gets a lot of hate. And I think the hate came from people. It's not because this car is bad. To be honest, I've owned this car for almost 5 years. I got 49,000 miles on this car, and it performs great with all the mods that I added on it. It totally changed the characteristic of this car when it first came out, roll out from the dealer. At the time, this car feels like a boat. It's so wobbly. You can't lock the lines, and the car is just not handled great. So. By the time I got this car, I'm from a different country with a different background. I think of 6-cylinder, it's a huge engine. So it's like, it's good enough for me. And then after just a few weeks, when I joined a car group and started talking cars to the other people and started understanding their car culture in the United States, I realized, people in the United States really don't care about the fuel economy that much. And then that's the point I realized, okay, if you want to get a Mustang, you should get a V8. So from that moment on, I started regret that I purchased a V6. But after this many years, I think this car has never let me down, except all the hate. So I think owning a V6, it's not about how bad your car performs or how slow your car is. That's the thing that I think everybody knows, if they know you're driving a V6. I think the biggest challenge of owning a V6 is to be mentally prepared that you own a V6, so sometimes people is gonna talking, bad about your car. And I've been experienced that, in the last few years. Every time I went to a new car meet, meeting new people, a lot of people would say, oh, nice car. And the first thing I would tell them is, oh, it's a V6. And most of the people, yeah, they will ask further question about the builds, about the mods and things like that. But most of the people are just like, oh, nice color. And end of the conversation. So, yeah, it is a funny story. It is a funny experience. But this video is going to mainly focus on people who really want to purchase their first car and want to look into some cheaper alternative than a, let's see, a nice performance car like, V8s or supercharged V6 or things like that. For me, as the owner of this car, I would say it is actually pretty nice. Like, if you know what you're doing with this car, it can be even better. Like, let's talk mods first. The mods that I put on this car, it's mainly focused on the chassis upgrades, like the handling side of the things. When the first moment I got this car, I realized, okay, this car can go really fast on a straight line. It's not a typical, like, muscle car, that quarter mile, leave the life, quarter mile time kind of car. So I was like, yeah, let's make it at least handle good. At least in the corner, I can catch up with all those V8s. So that's where I dumped all my money on. So it got upgraded suspension, upgraded like the whole suspension setup, and then panhard bar and sway bar, and of course adjustable camber, caster, and things like that, properly lowered. The front is 1.1 inch, the rear is 1.7 inch lowered, so it is much more even lower instead of the like stagger setup like all, you know, most of the muscle car owner would do to their car. So yeah, to make it basically handle better in the B roads like the road I'm riding right now. So, and yeah, that's one of the things. And the second thing is, a lot of people thinking about the V6, and they will say, you know, I buy a V6 because of the fuel economy, because I can, you know, afford gas and things like that. The thing about this car is like the best mile per gallon I've ever done is about 22 miles per gallon, and I have a manual version. Oh, and here's another thing. The form factor of a manual and automatic. If you own a automatic V6, people is gonna just bashing on you and just think you're straight not a car guy. And if you're a manual V6, you know, some people will respect you because at least you're doing the right thing for a, you know, a car guy should do, to drive a manual. And in some degree, I agree that as well, because, you know, I'm a car guy, I enjoy control my car the way I wanted to, so I bought a manual with, you know, all the luxury stuff that I can load on this car. Still, it's cheaper than a base model V8 at the time. So yeah, it's a manual gearbox, it's a 2.73 gear ratio, which is very long gear for highway. It's not really a performance package. Like, Ford does offer a performance package back in 2013 and 14 model, because at that time, V6 Mustang is actually a huge deal. Like, their advertisement, their commercial for this car is 305 horsepower at the crank, and also 31 miles per gallon on highway, which I've never achieved that such number on highway. I don't know how they tested that, but that's that. And for the rest of the part of this car is, of course, well, I was talking about the build and the mods on this car. The other mods that I had on this car is, of course, a custom tune and all the intake, the throttle body, the headers, the mid-pipe, and the exhaust. I'm barely 2,000 RPM right now. The car is relatively quiet, so I can talk to you guys. If I floor the gas, you know, it's gonna be super, super loud, and I kind of don't want to do that because it offended a lot of people. When I'm driving this car on the highway, I'm trying to downshift and pass some people on the highway. A lot of people would just give me a finger because they think I'm trying to challenging them on the highway. Exactly, you know, it happened all the time, so yeah, I kind of get used to that right now. And also, it's a cop magnet. A lot of people would listen, a lot of cops will listen to the sound of the car and come after you because your car is way too loud and they think you're doing some illegal stuff on the road. And that's also quite annoying. And for a V6 Mustang, I kind of regret all the exhaust mods that I put on my car, especially after 5 years of driving it, because I kind of think it's just way too loud and raspy. It does not sound like a V8. Another thing is a lot of V6 owners trying to make their V6 car sound like a V8. I don't think that mindset is right. Like, you have 2 less cylinder. It's impossible to make a car sound like a V8. So just make it sound like a nice V6. That's where I would go with the car. So yeah, I think basically, owning a V6 Mustang, it's a pleasant experience, but it's not a nice experience if you are actually a car guy and if you actually like the cars. Because a lot of people, mentally, I don't think a lot of people are prepared to have a V6 Mustang and roll them to any sort of car meets. Because, you know, people is just gonna talk stuff about your car and think that you're not a proper car guy. I kind of think that's very sad, you know. And yeah, that's basically my car. There's really nothing special that I think I should talk about this car. And if you're watching this right now, and if you're telling me, and if you're gonna tell me, you know, you're a car guy and all you want is a V6 Mustang, you know, you just want a V6, you don't want a V8, I think you should go to the hospital or somewhere to get yourself checked, because that's not a right mindset. And the last thing, there's also one benefit of having a V6 Mustang. That is, of course, people is not going to talking shit about you hitting crowds. Like, you know, Mustangs are famous of hitting crowds and, you know, leaving the car show. You can tell them it's a V6, so we don't have the horsepower to hit the crowds. You know, we don't have the horsepower to knock down adults, a group of adults. But we might knock down a few kids though. So that's one of the downside. Like that's what I tell people all the time. We don't aim for adults, V6 Mustang owners. We aim for kids. So yeah, be careful with that.